Good morning. It is March 28th on Senate Judiciary. We are taking a walk through of page 41. Let's counsel.
Good morning. I'll share my screen momentarily. Good morning. For the record, Ben Grosky from the Office of Legislative Counsel. Before the committee is age 41, entitled an act relating to use of the dead body of a person. So as the title indicates, it's a pretty heavy subject. I just kind of want to preview that there's going to be some, not for the faint of heart testimony concerning this bill, topics that are a little unsavory to say the least. So just to kind of give everybody the heads up before we get into the bulk of the bill. And I will defer to Representative Burdett as far as the reasons underlying the need for this bill. But suffice to say, Vermont is one of the few states in the country that didn't have essentially a, for lack of a better term, a corpse mutilation penalty statute. This now creates one in Title 13, Section 3761A. So essentially, what the statute does is create a pretty substantial criminal felony penalty for various abuses to dead body of the person. Subsection A of this new statute reads that no person shall knowingly, without legal authorization, intentionally burn, mutilate, disfigure, dismember, or destroy the dead body of a person. And for the committee's recollection, knowingly is essentially engaging in conduct that will cause or will practically certain to cause a specific.
Not sure what you're trying to.
Sorry. Apple Watch to cause a specific harmful result. So the way that the statute is broken down is that you are doing something where you know you don't have legal authorization. So what does legal authorization mean? So there are a few circumstances where you are legally authorized to burn a body. So if you are in the funeral services business and you cremate bodies, that's one form of legal authorization. Another one would be burial permits, and that is a statute that's amended later on, which give you authorization to move, bury, or otherwise transport bodies. So that's an example of what the legal authorization could be. So you do something with knowing that you don't have the legal authorization, and then you intentionally, so with the specific conscious objective to burn, mutilate, disfigure, dismember, or destroy the dead body of a person. The penalty associated with that violation is embodied in subsection or subdivision C1, where the person will be imprisoned for not more than 5 years or fined not more than $5,000 or both. Subsection B creates an enhanced penalty where someone, we're reading for the basis of which no person shall intentionally bury, transport, hide, conceal, burn, mutilate, disfigure, dismember, or destroy the dead body of a person for the purpose of concealing a crime or avoiding apprehension, prosecution, or conviction of a crime. And then subdivision 2 prohibits committing sexual conduct upon the dead body of a person. And the enhanced penalties associated with the violation of subsection B is embodied in subdivision C2. Where someone who commits that felony would be imprisoned not more than 15 years or fined not more than $10,000 or both. Subdivision or subsection D outlines some definitions. Dead body of a person does not include the cremated remains. So just ensuring that people aren't unduly captured by this that may engage in such conduct. And then sexual conduct means any of the following committed against the dead body of a person. Subdivision A, any conduct involving contact between the penis and the vulva, the penis and the penis, the penis and the anus, the mouth and the anus, the mouth the mouth of the penis, the mouth of the anus, the vulva, and the mouth. And this language is derived from child exploitation statutes, so it is consistent language that we have in other portions of our statutes. Subdivision B also outlines more conduct that any intrusion, however slight, by any part of an individual body or any object into any part of a dead human body with the intent of arousing, appealing to, or gratifying the lust, passions, or sexual desire of any individual. And then subdivision C, any touching of the dead human body with the intent of arousing, appealing to, or gratifying the lust, passions, or sexual desire of an individual, and the masturbation or bestiality. So that's the conduct that's included in sexual conduct. So that is the new statute that is being proposed by this bill. And then section 2 amends the already existing statute 18 VSA 5211, which is that unauthorized burial or removal penalty. So essentially this statute already on the books prohibits that a person who buries, entombs, transports, or removes the dead body of a person without a burial transit permit so to do, or in any other manner or at any other time or place is specified in such a permit, currently reads shall be imprisoned not more than 5 years or fined not more than $1,000 for both. Section 2 proposes to strike the imprisonment, so it would make this a civil penalty rather than a criminal penalty. So in the House, they decided that they're going to roll in certain conduct that was covered by this, really what is a public health statute, Title 18, rather than a criminal statute. Roll that conduct into the new proposed statute, and then create a civil penalty for the unauthorized burial or removal of the body. And then Section 3 is the effective date, which is July 1st of 2025. So any questions on the structure of the new law and the amendments to the existing law?
Senator.
Yes, Ben, I realize we're getting to a very, very sensitive, fragment kind of issues here. On page 1,
Yes.
line 11, where it says no person shall commit sexual conduct upon the dead body of a person. My question there is it up to the state to prove that the individual is deceased, or is it rape, and then how do they prove it occurred after the death of the individual?
Well, yeah, the burden would be on the state to prove the essential elements of the crime by beyond reasonable doubt. So yeah, that would come in through the evidence at the trial to prove that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Sure, we'll have more questions later on. But yeah, thanks for watching. Next, we have Representative Burden, sponsor of the bill. Jim, gotcha.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Representative Burden from Vice Chair of House Judiciary, and represent area around this room. And just want to say good morning to Pam. Pam and I have gotten to know each other a little bit through this whole process. And this is an incredibly emotional topic for me. I didn't know Pam before this. I didn't know her family, and it's just amazing how you can get yourself into something like this. I've never heard testimony that even comes close to what Pam has gave it in House Judiciary. But I'll start at the beginning. I mean, this happened up in Enosburg. I live in West Rutland, and how did I get involved in it? And I got involved in it because Pam and I had some mutual friends who I got some legislation passed for probably, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 years ago. And she called me and asked for my help, with getting this legislation passed. And so I said yes. And I contacted Penny DeMar, Representative DeMar, who the rep from Enosburg. I contacted Senator Brock, who's a senator up there, just because I didn't want to step on any toes, and Penny, you know, more or less said go for it as far as taking this over. I almost feel like the reason that I'm here is to prepare everybody. I mean, you're gonna hear a little bit from Pam as far as, you know, like crime scene stuff, how emotional it is for what the family went through, you know, the community. And I'm gonna tell you, Pam she's pretty brave, and she's honest, and it's a graphic testimony. I don't know what else to say other than that. You know, a lot of the testimony left me speechless, and when I reported it on the floor, I don't know how I held myself together. That's how emotional this is. But you know, between last couple or between yesterday and the ride up here, I had all kinds of things I wanted to say, and they're all gone. You know, should I have written them down? I don't know, but yeah, again, it's gonna be like a crime scene. No, I don't know what to say. This one just affected me so much. I mean, in the past, I've done, you know, as I was gonna say representative machine, but Senator machine knows that I've done some stuff around there in that Congress against children. That was pretty emotional stuff. And that didn't even come close to this. Yeah, I'm just gonna turn it over to Pam, I guess, or
Yeah, no, thank you.
turn it over to Pam.
Yeah, I know you invested a lot in this bill, so I'm glad you came in just to at least level set them and share your piece on it. So
Yeah, and the big thing was that I was pretty amazed that it was misdemeanors to, you know, as far as moving a body to facing a body. And the one thing that Ben reminded me of when he was going through the bill is that a road I never expected to go down as far as, you know, abuse of a corpse, you know, is the sexual part of it. I mean, maybe I'm gonna guess Senator Norris has, you know, maybe dealt with some of this stuff like this, but the average person, I don't think their mind goes to that somebody sexually abuses a corpse. And I mean, it's all in here. It's all gonna be in the story, but I guess that's all I got. If somebody has some questions or now or later on or want to have me talk to me.
any questions for Representative Further? Okay. So in that case, we can, is Pam? Okay, so we can hand it over to Ms. Harris to share her story and some of the background that created the impetus for this bill. Can you hear us?
Mute. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We can hear you as well, and floor is yours if you'd like to take some time and share the background for this bill and why it's here today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for having me today. My name is Pam Martin Harris. And I was holding it together until Tom started talking. It's been 8 months, 11 days since July 17th. My mom is Roberta Martin, who was brutally murdered. Her body was set on fire, which is clearly abuse of a dead body. This happened in our state, my home state of Vermont, in Franklin County, in Enosburg, on a little dirt road on Butternut Hollow. I'd like to share a little bit about my mom. At 82 years young, as we called her, she was not your typical 82-year-old woman. When she was missing, it really bothered me when they kept saying, quote unquote, elderly woman missing. My mom was truly young at heart. She walked daily. She did yoga. She stretched out on her inversion table. She gardened. She ate healthy. She had this radiance about her. She truly defined that 82 was the new 62. Mom had a sweetness about her. She was timid, old-fashioned. She kept to herself. She was well-liked by her friends and neighbors. She had a servant's heart. When family or friends were sick or needed help, she was there. She truly had a heart of gold. My parents were married for 60 years. When my dad passed 6.5 years ago, Mom became a widow on her own for the very, very first time in her life. This is when she began spending her summers in her home in Enosburg and spent the winter months with my husband and I in the South, getting out of the cold Vermont winters. She just wasn't ready to give up her independence and chose to stay at her home. But she did not like being alone, especially at night. In fact, she left every light on until it was bedtime. And we ended our evenings with a phone call to say our good nights. We spoke several times a day, every single day. In fact, last summer, we were talking about our plans this winter, planning our Christmas vacation in Destin, Florida, spending time with my grandchildren that live nearby, baking as we always did during the holidays. I'm telling you this because our plans were shattered and taken when she was murdered. That dreadful day to learn that a body was found and that could possibly be my mom was horrific. Detective Angela Baker called me that day and asked, what size shoe did my mom wear? Did I know any particular details about her feet? At the time, I had no idea why such specific questions were being asked. My mom was petite. She wore a size 6. She had a surgery on each of her big toes where she had screws placed. I was puzzled and my mind was racing. Why am I being asked this? And because of these few facts, we were told by the Vermont State Police the remains found were most likely my mom's, but they needed to be confirmed by the medical examiner, only to find out that the body found was identified later that it was my mom. My family and I did not learn all the details that day. We got them in pieces, like a tiny broken puzzle that made no sense. We were told that a foot was found that had been severed, chewed off by an animal, dismembering it. Detective Nato found a human foot and then searched further, only to find a body 3 feet away that had been burnt beyond recognition, but appeared to be human and not a decayed animal. Imagine being told this about a loved one, but imagine it was your mom. It was horrifying. We still didn't know who did this or why. I felt helpless. I felt completely broken. The horror she must have felt was haunting. When the Vermont State Police arrested the suspect, forensics had determined she had been raped. They had proof of his DNA. My precious, sweet mom had been brutally attacked, murdered, raped, carried out of her home, thrown into the woods, and set on fire. Let that sink in. This is a clear example of abuse of a dead body. The law states you must have a license and registered with the state and have necessary permits, perhaps a funeral home. Arrangements are then made by the family to be properly disposed of, whether it's buried or cremated. My family and I were robbed of saying our final goodbyes to my mom. Imagine, if you would, first losing a loved one from such a heinous crime, only to learn your loved one's body was burnt. It's cruel, it's inhumane, and it's so brutal. The closure you never get is unnerving. It's a void, an ache that's constant, an unrelenting battle with reality that you feel, and the endless replay in your mind of what could have been if only he would have left her body alone. But the cruel visions that replay in your head haunt you daily. I never got the opportunity to say my final goodbye to my precious mom. My mom was in the privacy of her home, sound asleep in her safe place. This demonic monster broke in, harmed her, murdered her, raped her, but that was not enough. Instead of fleeing and leaving her, he carried her lifeless body out of her home, less than a mile away, and he could have just left her in the woods, but that wasn't enough. He then ignited her and burnt her beyond recognition in hopes to destroy any evidence, I assume. Just let that resonate. Clearly, a gross abuse of a dead body. Visualize that. It's very, very disturbing, as any of you could ever imagine. And this is where me and my family were brought to, where her body was found 5 days later. It was a huge oak tree that had fallen over, and its roots were pulled out of the ground, creating the ditch-like area. Impulsively, I didn't plan on it, but impulsively, I crawled into that area, and I lied there. And as I lied there, I could smell the burnt, stint wood and leaves that remained. My mom's remains laid there for 5 days while we were searching for her, hoping to find her alive. My sweet mom was not only murdered, but her lifeless body was cruelly abused. Not only removing her body, but burnt her. It's cold-blooded, ruthless, unsympathetic, barbaric, vicious, atrocious, callous, evil, harsh, hateful, inhuman, inhumane, relentless, sadistic, spiteful, and wicked. These are just a few descriptions that come to mind. It's hard to express and put into words how this makes me and my family feel. It's hard to choose the appropriate words to emphasize the brutality. I speak on behalf of my sisters, my mom's sisters, her in-laws, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, neighbors, friends, and even people that didn't even know her. We've all been in this nightmare together. It has caused so much pain for many people. I have gone to counseling as others have as well. This has tested my faith in questioning God. Why? Why would God allow this to happen? In my faith, I have concluded this was the act of the devil. When my mom's mother passed away, she kissed her on the cheek, saying her final goodbyes. I was 10 years old when my Grammy passed, and it's something I cherish. It's something I have done as well. When my father passed, I kissed him on the cheek and other close family members. And it's something I never really given any thought to until now. I never got to kiss my sweet mom. I never got to say my final goodbye. And after 4 months after she was found, we finally heard from the medical examiner the cause of death was blunt trauma to the head, homicidal. This is what's written on my mom's death certificate forever. And the date of death of my mom's death certificate says July 2024. There is no day of death because it cannot be proven what day she was actually murdered. This is permanent. It's what will be on the record for generations to see. Not only did he harm her, he raped and murdered my precious mom. He burnt her. Last September, after a status conference, we met with Diana Wheeler, Deputy State's Attorney in charge of my mom's case, and we were asking many questions. One was, why is only aggravated murder being charged against the accused and not each individual charge? Which would, I'm not sure exactly, but I'm assuming breaking and entering, unlawful trespassing, assault, rape, murder, transferring a corpse, abusing a dead body. And she explained each detail and what each penalty would hold. Then Diane explained that it's a mere slap on the wrist for abusing a dead body. And we were outraged. I was shocked. She suggested we reached out to Vermont legislators. So this is when I reached out to Senator Randy Brock, Amy Farr, the Vermont State Police Victims Advocate. She put me in touch with Jen Pullman, Executive Director for the Vermont Center for Crime Victim Services. And my high school friend, Patty Whitney, reached out to Tom Burdick, who now has been working on this bill. And I appreciate all the work that you've done, Tom. The reason we're even addressing this today is because of my mom's murder. My family and I would like for you to consider calling H41 Roberta's Law. My mom's legacy will live on by naming it Roberta's Law, hoping other families will not have to endure it as a misdemeanor, but enforcing this as a felony. And the sad reality is she was taken from us. She was healthy. She had a lot more living to do. God didn't take her, this monster did. But murdering her was not enough. He burnt her. No human deserves this, especially one's mom. And to sum it up, in my mom's case, we may never know the order of assault the perpetrator did. Blunt trauma to the heart, we know is a fact. The medical examiner concluded is the cause of death. He raped her. The DNA proves it, which would be clearly disturbing a dead body. He removed her dead body from her home and set her on fire. Again, disturbing a dead body. But there is something that could arise during the trial, perhaps a technicality, and the aggravated murder charge is thrown out. Diane would impose each individual charge. It could be said he reportedly would be charged twice disturbing a dead body by raping her if he had done so after she was deceased, and burning her is something to consider. I don't know that, and it will not come out until the trial. That's just my theory. In today's society, with the combination of mental health and drug addiction, where they become an epidemic and being such a problem, these crimes are unthinkable. And we must put such an important laws into place and the penalty be a felony. I have learned, as I think it's Ben who had mentioned this earlier, I have learned during this process that Vermont is one of 2 states that does not have this law in place. I respectfully ask you to move this through Bill H-41, Roberta's Law. I am so grateful to Tom, his team, and now to all of you for even considering this. Thank you for hearing me, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Ms. Harris, and I think it's definitely going to be an understatement for me to say that I can't imagine how difficult it is to testify to this and reshare this story again with another legislative committee. So thank you. And I appreciate your advocacy. Committee, the questions or comments for Ms. Harris?
If I may, Senator.
Please.
Knowing Pam, like I do, if you do have anything on your mind, don't hesitate. Because she wants to answer your question. She wants to know how you feel about it. I know it's a tough topic to maybe, address with, somebody, that went through that, but I really would encourage you. Not to hesitate.
Having these conversations, you really have to disconnect the emotional part of it because it is so heinous. I mean, to even be having this conversation is unthinkable for, I guess, the average person. But it happened. This wasn't in some big city that we read about on national news. This happened in our state.
Committee, any questions or comments before we move on to the next one? Senator North.
I guess, Pam, I had to mention, I don't know you, Senator Bob Norris. I didn't know your mom either, but I did know a lot of her neighbors. My condolences go out to you and your family. I was at the candlelight vigil for your mom in Eastburg in the park that evening, such as many, many dozens of people were, and I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I had no idea you were there. I appreciate you being there.
Both my wife and I, both my wife and I were there. Yes.
The town of Enosburg was incredible. How the town came together and they opened up the fire station. And when I walked in there, I had been in there to the fire station. That's where the senior exercise classes were. So when I was in Vermont, I went in there several times. When I walked in there, it looked like I was in a CSI movie. There were men in suits, there were tables, there were computers. It was amazing. And it was so surreal. I mean, when she came missing, I thought somebody had kidnapped her and couldn't understand why. And I lived in Florida. I flew up that day to get my mom. None of us had no earthly idea what had happened. And I can't tell you enough how empathetic and supportive. The first person I met was Detective Angela Baker, who was the lead detective on the case. And then I was introduced to Amy Farr. I don't know if you know them personally, but they were incredible. They were professional and they were so considerate. And to this day, they still reach out to me. And I just had a conversation with Amy last night, and the people that have been on this case from the start and that I've met on the way, now you, Tom, the committee, I got a personal card from Angela Arsenal, and it just touched my heart. And on the committee that Tom is on, and I am so grateful, And if something this horrific has happened once in Vermont, it's one time too many. And to put this into law and have it as a felon, it's something, it might not be relevant to my mom's case, but it could be for in the future. Like I said, in today's society with drug abuse, which I'm not saying drugs were involved because I don't know, but one's mind cannot be in the state, in a sane mind to have done this act. So I appreciate all of you working on this.
Thank you. And I believe you have our contact information. I'm sure you'll be following the bill closely. So of course, feel free to reach out with any questions or comments that you might have.
I will. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So next up, we have Jessica Marcus.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jessica Barquist, I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs for the Planned Parenthood Vermont Action Fund. And I just want to start off by expressing my deepest condolences to Pam and the family of Roberta Martin. I acknowledge just how difficult and traumatic this horrific crime was for all who knew and loved her. I also deeply understand the desire to turn that pain into advocacy. And I fully acknowledge and understand the intent behind this legislation. That being said, we do have significant concerns with adding an abuse of a court statute on the books in Vermont. We have no comments on subsection 2 related to the sexual assault provisions. Our concerns are solely focused on subsections A and B and the unintended consequences that may result. There is a longstanding history dating back to the 1700s of using abuse of corpse laws to criminalize, ostracize, and harm women for experiencing miscarriages or abortion. From 2000 to 2020, at least 61 women were criminally investigated or arrested for ending their own pregnancies or helping someone do so. Abuse of a corpse charges accounted for roughly 2% of the pregnancy criminalization cases that Pregnancy Justice examined in their pre-Dodge pregnancy criminalization report. We've already seen devastating consequences because of similar legislation, with cases in Georgia, South Carolina, Arkansas, Texas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, as well as Ohio. In 2023, Brittany Watts was arrested and charged with felony abuse of a corpse after suffering a miscarriage in Ohio. Ohio, like Vermont, does not have a fetal personhood law, but they do have a felony abuse of a corpse law. In this case, shockingly, it was her physician who reported her. Roughly 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. This can be a highly traumatic event in a woman's life, and instead of focusing on healing physically and emotionally, this type of legislation can cause additional trauma and harm to that person, because it can create fear for those experiencing miscarriage or complications from an abortion, deterring them from seeking necessary medical care and potentially leading to dangerous health outcomes. No matter what the reason states have for criminalizing pregnancy loss, people of color and lower socioeconomic status are often more likely to experience stillbirths and thus bear a disproportionate burden of this criminalization. So although Vermont does have reproductive liberty as part of our constitution, and we do not have fetal personhood laws, creating a felony law around corpse abuse does open a door for those who are opposed to abortion to criminalize pregnancy outcomes. And as seen in that Ohio case, it is possible to charge someone with felony abuse of a corpse even without those fetal personhood laws. So we just want to share our concerns about what this could look like and the unintended consequences, because fully recognizing that that's not what this law is intending to do, but.
Thank you. Do you, or actually, committee, any questions or comments? Do you have any recommended language changes to what we have in front of us that would make this a bit more clear as to, in order to avoid the concerns that you're, or rather, let me rephrase, in order to alleviate the concerns that you're raising, do you have any recommended or proposed language changes to the bill that we have in front of us?
I'm not sure that there is a way to criminalize disposal of a corpse without running into this potential complication.
I mean, if there was language that made it explicit that this does not apply to instances of miscarriage, or if there was legislative intent that spelled out that this was not, that this is not intended to apply to any of the situations that you've just brought. But that, actually, I guess that's a question probably for the council. Did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so the House dealt with this issue extensively. And you see from the original as introduced version of the bill where it was called abuse of a dead of a corpse, and it's changed dead body of a person. There was a lot of testimony to specifically, and it changes to the language as you currently see it to address this specific issue. And there's some case law which really is in dicta that talks about how the public health statute 18 in section 2, how that's been litigated. And basically what the court said in dicta there is that you don't need to prove fetal death or person to get to the fact that it's a dead person. And so it's sort of, and I think when you look in combination to the reproductive rights amendment that was passed a couple of years ago in relation to this, and the changes that were made in the House, I think you get to where you need to be to avoid the issues raised by Ms. Marquis.
And
And I can give that case to the state chambers.
State versus Chambers.
Yeah, 144 VT 234 from the year 1984.
Question for the witness. I haven't read a lot about this, but once I realized that it was coming, I did look into the call it controversy around these sorts of matters. It seems to me there's two basic things. One is that someone who's experienced a miscarriage might be criminalized, but the other is that these laws, according to some, are being used to advance an argument about fetal personhood. Can you just speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this, because of the language around person and treating a dead fetus as a person, that kind of opens a legal argument to having a fetal personhood law, which could criminalize other aspects of pregnancy. And this is a debate that we're also having in Vermont, right? Like there is a case right now around DCF and, the custody of an unborn child. And so I think that I am still concerned with the language as written, and that, yes, it says in pursuit of a crime, but that can change. And the current status in our nation is very risky. And so whether or not an actual criminalization case could go through, the chilling effect that this could have on women who are experiencing extreme complications from a pregnancy or an abortion, and then not seeking medical care as a result, I feel is a huge risk and unintended consequence of this.
Mindy, any further questions?
No.
Thank you. Looks like we've got a fair amount of time. I know that we had some other folks who had requested to testify. I wasn't sure if we were going to have enough time, but would you like to testify today or save it for next week? We've got about 45 minutes additional time. So.
I can be very brief.
Well, we got plenty of time. So.
Sure, why not? Hi, good morning. Jessa Barnard. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Medical Society. It's our first time in the committee this session, so I'll just say briefly, we are a professional association for physicians and physician assistants statewide. We have advocated very strongly for Vermont's constitutional amendment and shield laws to enshrine a right to all reproductive health care in the state. And we will just echo the concerns you just heard from Planned Parenthood. We are concerned with unintended consequences. Again, echoing what Jessica said, that we know that wasn't the intent of why the legislation was introduced, but we have seen cases around the country criminalizing individuals who have experienced miscarriages, and would just like the committee to really take a close look at the language. We're not aware of the bill moving in the House, so apologize, we were not able to engage on that side, but bringing the concern to you today.
Thank you. Do you have any recommendations or changes to the language that you think would safeguard or rather alleviate some of the concerns that have been raised?
I need to dig in again, since we missed the discussion on the House side. I need to look at that case in more detail. But again, I understand. It sounds like the intent was to use that term person to clarify, but we have seen that again used in other states to also be expanded to fetuses, unborn children, however you may define it. So I'm not sure that's adequately addresses the concern. There may be other ways to approach it, but I would need to think about that in a little more detail.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Comments? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, kind of something. Oh, okay. Then Devin, can you
Sure, I can also be brief.
got plenty of time.
Devin Green, Vermont Association of Hospitals and Health Systems, and we represent all of Vermont's hospitals, all of which are nonprofit. And I just want to echo the sentiments of the witnesses before me, particularly to Pam also and what she's been through. We completely understand what this bill is proposing to do and prevent. But in addition to the concerns raised, and I think it's addressed here, but again, it's something that we're having our compliance folks look into. We just want to make sure that this does not apply to cadavers or any bodies that are used for purposes of education. So we're looking into that and happy to get back to you with any language changes.
Okay.
So it's a for the purpose of concealing a crime or apprehension. So there does have to be an intent to commit a crime.
Right.
But I see your point. You want language that would make it absolutely clear that cadavers were not.
Right. And I think what I'm going to is the first part, the A, the without legal authorization. We've heard about licensure for bodies, but I just don't know how that plays out with cadavers.
That first section seems like a lesser offense, whereas subsection B1 is an enhanced offense if the desecration of the body is for the purpose of concealing a crime. I think if the three of you might be able to, I mean, you have my consent to work with Ledge Council if you three of you want to bring your heads together and propose any sort of language that can fully remedy your concerns, and then we can bring that back to the committee and discuss further and see where it takes us. That works.
Sir, if I may too, so part of what the House Committee on Judiciary, again, this was an issue that they contemplated in their changes to the bill. And so that phrase in subsection A of knowingly without legal authorization was very purposeful, not to bring a different in the sense that if you're using cadavers for educational purposes, it's presumably a legal authorization to do so. However, they took the extra precaution of inserting that knowingly standard. So even if for some reason you didn't have legal authorization, but you thought that you were acting under legal authorization, you wouldn't be captured by this because you weren't knowingly doing something without legal authorization. So that language was very intentional to protect against that specific situation.
That's helpful, and I'm just waiting to hear back from our folks to ensure that that's the case.
Maybe any further questions?
I do for Representative Burdick before he takes off here. Did any of these issues evidently was addressed in committee on the floor during the presentation that's available? Or did any of these issues come up at all? Or
On the floor?
yeah,
No,
nothing was started.
I've got no questions at all on the floor.
Maybe any general discussion? Well, I think that the next step would be, to perhaps get some proposed language to alleviate some of the concerns, or rather all the concerns that were just raised earlier, and see what we can do with that. And then we'll take it from there. And in the meantime, we have about 35 minutes until our next witness. We have Chris Winters, DCF coming in, so that'll be in